Alright guys, we're back, and we are going to be fixing FEH one video at a time. Yeah, I know yesterday I put out that really negative video that rubbed a lot of people wrong, so this is what we're going to do. It's one thing to complain and voice your grievances with the game. It's something else to actually tell them what they can do to fix it. So hopefully IntSys is watching this. I've had suspicions in the past, not so much recently, but at the very least, during the first year or two of the game, I did notice that a couple of, not just me either, like a couple of YouTubers would say something about the game, and then, what do you know, like a week or two later, they actually made good on it. So, they have been watching FEHtubers at least before. I don't know if they still do. So, maybe there's a chance that they'll be listening in on what I have to say here. Alright, so with that out of the way, we're going to start with a little bit of an information dump here. So, a detailed look at current player engagement for Fire Emblem Heroes. This was made 5 months ago, so it's not completely accurate, but, I mean, whatever we have here, I think is a decent enough estimate at what's going on. So, currently, a player scoring 0 points will be ranked 204,000 at the end of a TEPS trial. Approximately 3 years ago, this score would be ranked around 300,000. So, from 3 years ago to now, we've had roughly a 100k drop-off in player base, which... And what is that, like a third of the player base has quit in 3 years? Now, that's not really a cause for alarm, though, because, of course, that's going to be the case in any gacha. Like, 3 years is a long time for a gacha. So, of course, people are going to get burnt out, and they're just going to stop playing the game, or something happened they didn't like, and then that caused them to quit the game. So, things like that definitely happens, and I would still say a 200,000 player base is pretty solid. If we take a look at it from this perspective... Now, not everyone is spending money. There's definitely a lot of free-to-play players there, but I'm sure a lot of people buy the FEH Pass. So, why don't we say, like, let's say like 50,000 players are buying the FEH Pass every month. It's about $10, so that would be 500,000, basically $500,000 that FEH is getting a month on FEH Pass. And that's not including other things too, like orb packs, the Forma Soul pack, the Binding Whirl Forma, like things that people like to buy because it helps them build their favorites a lot easier. So, the game is doing pretty healthy as far as money is concerned. Also, I haven't looked recently at Sensor Tower for FEH, but the last time I checked, they were pulling in like $4 to $5 million a month, which is pretty respectable for a gacha. That's enough to keep the game alive for at least a little while. So, I don't think we have anything to worry about in terms of that. Now, the real cause of concern is this, though. So, I made this video 2 years ago when Dragalia Lost died, and I tried to look for a more recent, like, estimate on this, or more recent statistics on this, and I couldn't find it, so we just have to go over here. Basically, we have here a list of all of the most popular and top-grossing gachas. We have FGO, of course, all the way at the top. Genshin Impact, which was a recent release at the time, and that's one of the reasons why their monthly downloads is so high, is because Genshin was a really fresh game when this statistic was done. Dokkan, of course. Actually, Legends should be doing better than Dokkan right now. So, yeah, this list here is a little bit of a sign of the times, but we go over to Fire Emblem Heroes, and we see that monthly downloads are only at 40k. Now, Fire Emblem Heroes is within the top 10 of these gachas that they have listed, so... 40k is significantly lower than all of the other gachas on this list. That's kind of concerning. And that shows that people are not downloading the game at a regular rate. It also means they're not doing a good job advertising the game, which, I mean, is that a surprise to anyone? There's not really any commercials for the game or anything like that. They rely solely on new game entries, like for the main series Fire Emblem, to advertise the game that way. And that certainly worked for something like Three Houses that had very long amounts of staying power and got a lot of people engaged in the series and got them coming in. So Three Houses was good for that. Engage, not so much. They really shoehorned it, or they really ran through Engage quickly with the DLC. Like, they got that stuff out in no time at all, with hardly any cooldown period from release day. And Engage didn't really capture the audience as much as Three Houses did. So, if they were relying on Engage to draw in more players to Fire Emblem Heroes, it definitely didn't work. At least not to the amount that they wanted it to. And really, the only advertisements they do for the game itself are FEH channels and trailers for the new characters. So, it falls on the community to actually advertise the game and possibly get more people downloading. And that's really not a good sign right now because, of course, many people are negative about the game and say negative things about it. They don't recommend the game to newcomers. They talk about power creep and like all the nonsense that you know about that is going to be very off-putting to new players. So what can they actually do to attract new players into FEH and get them playing? Well, why don't we start with, of course, weapon descriptions, which is going to be a huge, like, off-put to a lot of people. If you're watching, the one thing that they do to advertise the game, which is the trailers for the new characters, you're going to be exposed to stuff like this. And if you're a layman, what is all of this? It's alphabet soup, right? Like, you have no idea what you're reading here. Exposure, Discord, like, what does that mean if you're a new player? You have no idea. And it's even worse now because they've taken out the descriptions of keywords like this to save some space on the text and just streamline things a little better. It's good for us as longtime players because, of course, we know what exposure and Discord do. But for newcomers, they may not know what they do. So this is where you just skip. Like, if you're a newcomer watching a trailer to Fire Emblem Heroes, you're probably not going to pay too much attention to stuff like this. You're just going to want to watch the animation. You're going to want to look at the art and then see, like, who else is on the banner. However, if you're coming into the game with the intent of, like, taking it serious or at least having an understanding of what things do, that's not going to be easy. It's a little easier on the Japanese side of things, though. If we take a look at a Japanese skill description here, it's certainly neater. It's laid out in a more cohesive way. They go line by line as opposed to paragraph by paragraph. So I think this makes it easier to understand. It's certainly easier on the eyes, and it just looks better. It's more presentable. And it's almost like bullet point format, right? Like, I think they should go with bullet points for the English descriptions to smooth things out a little and make them more easy to understand. Also, wording is another problem. So, Lagoose Friend 4 came out, and we all remember this. How many times did people ask, like, what this passive even did? Like, they would read it, and they still would not understand how it worked, and I think that's a big problem. If you're reading a passive, you should understand what it does by the end of reading it. So if you're not able to understand it, that shows a miscommunication on their part, and they haven't done a good job explaining and describing what the skill actually does. So they certainly need to get better at that. Like, obviously, we know these passive descriptions are Yu-Gi-Oh! Text long, and that is also another off-putting thing to a lot of people. No one wants to have to read all of this, but at the very least, if you're going to take the time to read it, you should be able to understand it. So I think that's something they need to work on for sure. Okay, now let's go ahead and move on to resources. So if you're a newcomer to the game, then of course, something that's going to be very important to you is actually being able to build characters, because that's the one fun thing about Fire Emblem Heroes is being able to play with your favorites and build them and get them to 5-star plus 10 and give them like good passives and a workable kit and things like that. You're not going to be able to do that if you just start playing the game. Hero feathers are very important for a newcomer, and they're also very limited for a newcomer. Same thing with sacred coins and refinement stones and also heroic grails. I think at the very minimum, these are the 4 currencies that I would like to see on an unlimited grind, like some kind of mode where we can just get unlimited access to these. It'll help you feel like you're making progress as well. Like when you play FEH, you log in, you do your dailies, and that's pretty much it, right? You just log out afterwards, and you don't really need to do anything else because there's unfortunately not much else to really do. But having actual like grinding material, like things that you can grind that will actually help you make progress and build characters that you like and have more fun with the game that way, it gives you more of an incentive to play the game, first of all, and then it also gives you something that makes you feel rewarded for your hard work. So FEH does not really have a mode that lets you grind resources unlimited. I think that's something that we need. And typically most games will have that. Like, there's always something that you can do in a game. Like, as long as you're playing the game, you should be making progress. And there's not really a way to do that outside of IntSys allowing us to make progress with, like, mission rewards and things like that. But having a grind for all of the relevant starting materials, I think, would be important. Sacred coins, of course, if you're not a day one player, these are going to be a massive gatekeep on your builds, because the sacred coins and the sacred seals are just very important for builds, and there's so many of them at this point, and if you've missed them, you have to forge them on top of that, which is even more sacred coins. So being able to upgrade and forge your coins should not be, or your seals should not be an issue. Refinements are another thing. If you have a favorite character and they have a refined weapon, of course you're going to want to get that refined weapon for them. And you probably have multiple favorites as well, so you're going to want to build all of them, or at least as many as you can, and having access to more refinement stones I think is a good thing. Heroic Grails, there is no reason why this should be limited at all. It's actually way more limited than it needs to be, because we use the Heroic Grails to purchase copies of the free-to-play units in the Heroic Grail shop. We're able to get copies of these Tempest Trial and Grand Hero Battle units, and a lot of them recently have actually been bangers. If we take a look down this list here, we can see Lloyd right here. This guy is actually amazing. He's a really awesome arena unit. We can keep going here. We have Mauvier and also the Baby Frederick. Both of them are pretty solid support options that can help out your other characters and let them do better. We've got units like Kana, female Kana, who actually shot up a ton in value given all of the new passives that you can give her. And then there's a damage dealer like a DPS option like Validar, who hits really hard with his effects. So there's some really cool stuff in here. Also, a lot of fan favorite characters are in here. And if they're not available as 3-star and 4-star summons on regular banners, you're not really going to be able to build them up at your own pace. So really the only way is by purchasing them in the Grail shop. And Heroic Grails, there's just no reason for them to be as limited as they are. I don't think it's going to break the game either if everyone had... Like, if everyone's walking around with a +10 Fallen Lloyd or like a +10 Mauvier or a +10 female Kana, is that going to break the game? No. Not at all. So why not just take the rails off of that and just allow everyone to just build whoever they want? And as long as they're a demoted character, of course. I'm not saying like the 5-star exclusives need to be able to easily get +10. They got to make their money. But like the free-to-play reward units, I don't think there needs to be a limit on like how many Heroic Grails you can get to just get as many copies as you want. And then of course Hero Feathers, you need these to level up to 5-star from your 4-star and 3-star demotes, and they kind of are on an unlimited grind a little bit with the hero merit, but that's also limited to how many characters you actually have in your barracks, and you can only grind 9,000 Hero Feathers per character. So being able to grind feathers directly, I think, would be so much better than just going through hero merit, and also it would be faster, and it would be like something that the new players coming into the game would be able to like enjoy themselves doing. Now, here's a mode that they could easily just update to allow us to grind all of these resources, and that would be the Training Tower, which has existed since day one. I'm not talking about no co-op mode. I'm not talking about adding monster enemies or anything like that. That would be a lot of work on their part. Something that already exists, because I know they like the easy way out, IntSys. They don't like putting in too much effort, but if there's something that they can update that wouldn't be too difficult, I think it's definitely this. So right now, you can grind shards and crystals and badges and great badges from the Training Tower. Now, the badges you use to also rank up your characters from 3-star to 4-star and 4-star to 5-star. But these are relatively easy to get. You don't really struggle for these too much. They're not an issue at all. Shards and crystals, on the other hand, are kind of useless, I want to say. Now, if you're trying to save time, you can use these to level up your characters for free without having to actually like manually get KOs with them and things like that. But it's actually better to get KOs manually because you're grinding SP at the same time and you gain more SP by doing that as opposed to using shards and crystals to level up. And also at the same time, it's like they could so easily just have better resources in here that you could be grinding. Like, as I said, the Hero Feathers, the coins, the refinement stones, the grails, like those are what people really want. And what people would really be grinding the Training Tower to be able to get. So having that in here, I think, would be awesome and certainly incentivize more people to be playing the game. And the final thing, of course, is builds. We got to talk about this because what are people here for is just building their favorites. And how are they going to be able to build their favorites if they don't have access to good passives? Now, I'm not saying I want passives like this to be available. This is a very toxic build that will be like, you'll see this on every endgame God Sword or like God Lance, God Axe. All of the infantry tank units are running this. So this is not something that we need easier access to. This is like endgame level stuff. This is once you've saved your resources for months and months and you really were going for something like this, that's when you should have this. Or if you're a dirty whale and you just like spend millions of dollars on the game. Not a dirty whale, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. Of course, the whales are keeping the game alive, so they are to be revered. But yeah, so like this is endgame content. We don't want this. But I think something like this is within the realm of possibility. Is this like too much to ask? Like, can we get some Demotes that have skills like this? And I'm not talking about the level 3 versions either, where, okay, you can use those to get the level 4 a little bit easier from skill inheritance. No, just go all the way. Just give us the level 4, the gold border version. And I don't think this is too much to ask. I don't think this is breaking the game at all. Attack and Speed Catch 4 is like not even the 4th or 5th best option for A slots on these cavalry type units right now. So what else are we looking at on Cavs? We've got Excel, Attack and Speed Excel. We've got Flared Sparrow. We've got like regular Attack and Speed Clash, which is better. We have also Prime, Attack and Speed Prime 4. I just named like 4 skills that are better than this. So they can't even give us the 4th best option, which is also not giving access to all of those additional effects that really make those above passives better. Like Flared Sparrow sets up the terrain tiles. We've got Excel, which is giving you the non-pierceable DR, and then like Clash is giving you nullification of attack and speed penalties. So like those are really the effects that are making your unit better, not so much the stats anymore. And we can't even get like this on a 3-star demote or a 4-star demote. I think it's about time. Like, we need to be getting this. Desperation 4, even when it came out, was already competing with Flow Desperation. So like this is not really too much to ask for. And on top of that, it's also just like, you might as well just have a dancer with Firestorm Dance 3 and just have them dance, and then they're giving you instant desperation. So like that's another thing to consider with this. So like I don't think this is too much to ask. And then Speed Smoke 4, you compare this to other C skills that we have. It already has the condition of not doing anything until after your first round of combat. So again, it's also like kind of useless until that point happens. So this would not be too much to ask. I don't think like a build like this is not breaking the game in any way. But the point here, though, is that it's a cohesive build, right? Like, you could give this to a character, especially a favorite, like Seth, for example, and he's going to be able to cook a little bit. So you would certainly be having more fun running something like this. If this was the budget build we're looking for on characters, as opposed to, remember the old school budget build of Fury 3, Desperation 3, and then, like, I don't know, what on a Cav, it would be like Gold Cav or Hone Cav or like Ward Cav or something like that. This is obviously a much better budget build, and it's certainly going to go a much further way in allowing your units to compete. Even though they're not competing at the highest level, they're still able to do something and contribute, and I think that's important. And just to toss some salt in the wound, look at this, right? Like, these are not even like, we're talking like below the bottom of the barrel here. These are, no one is running these passives, even if they had access to them. And even this is like pulling teeth for IntSys to put on the Demotes. So like, I think that's definitely a problem. There is no reason in the universe why a Demote 3-star or 4-star banner unit, or even a Tempestral or Grand Hero battle unit, can't have skills like this. Like, Rouse Attack and Speed 4 is probably the worst self-boosting C skill in the game. Nobody runs this. Quick Repost 4, enemy phase only, so like it's already at a disadvantage. And then Darting Blow 4, probably the worst Swift Sparrow variant that we have access to, and there's already like 5 or 6 Swift Sparrows, and all of them are better than the last. So like, I don't know, man. If even this is a problem for them to give out on free-to-play units, I think that shouldn't be the case after 7 years. Like, just give us something. Throw us a bone, right? Like, just because it's a gold border skill, I don't think that means it's going to break the game. So, yeah. Those are my thoughts on what they can do to at least garner more interest from newcomers and hopefully get some new players into the game and playing. So that's going to wrap us up for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and we will be back tomorrow with another video on how they can improve FEH.